Hello, and welcome to mentorDINO. I'm your host, Caitlin Rossier. I am an architect and founder of mentorDINO. I firmly believe that architecture, engineering, and construction professionals can achieve true success by embracing human skills as their guiding principle. So each week, I interview amazing professionals in and around the AEC industry as a way to share stories, inspiration, and advice for others finding their own unique career path. Thank you to all of our current subscribers, and if you're new, we'd love to have you join our community. So if you like this episode, please do me a favor and hit subscribe, like, or leave a comment below. It really helps others be able to discover this resource and support them on their own career journey. So let's dive in. I really hope you enjoy this conversation. Welcome to the mentorDINO podcast. I would like to welcome Emily Soloby, founder of Juno Jones Safety Boots out in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Thank you, Emily, for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. I'm really excited to be here. This should be fun.
Yeah, I am so excited to dive into kind of the PPE side of the AEC industry. So if you don't mind, I always start out with my loaded question. If you don't mind introducing yourself to let my listeners know a little bit more about your experience and journey so far in your education career.
Well, my background is pretty varied. I started out in law. Well, going back even further, I started out as a domestic violence victim advocate in the courts. And then I went into law and I continued that work as a domestic violence victim advocate, advocating on behalf of women and children. I've been also doing other types of cases as well. So I did that as a courtroom lawyer for a while. And then I switched careers. And my husband and I decided to take over a family business in the trucking industry. So we took over a small mom and pop from an uncle. We bought the business and we grew that over the years into a national level training firm for trucks and heavy equipment. So it was during my time there working as an executive in the transportation industry that I realized the footwear issue. And I'm always looking for ways to help women. It's just sort of in my nature and it's one of my passions. So looking at the field of transportation where I was working, that was the big thing that stood out to me. And probably the reason it stood out to me is because I love shoes so much. And I've always loved boots and shoes. And I have a background in shoemaking. So put all of those things together, advocacy for women, non-traditional field, and shoes. And that's how I launched Juno Jones.
Yeah, because I know when I was in schools, like you pretty much just had to go to Timberlands or anything and just get a smaller men's shoe to have anything. And then it just looks like giant and bulky. Like, not that I need to be feminine on a job site, but at least something that looks halfway decent. Because a lot of the times I'm jumping straight from a job site to a client meeting, or it's both, and trying to get it all together in one and still look professional and put together.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it. I think feeling put together, it makes us feel empowered. And wearing footwear that goes with the rest of our outfit makes us feel like a professional. And when we don't have that, when our footwear doesn't match the rest of what we're wearing because it feels like it's on a different person, it makes us stop and think, maybe I don't belong here because there's not even footwear made for me. And it kind of delegitimizes ourselves, and it has that effect on our subconscious. So it's really important that we have the proper fitting and that's just the proper PPE for what we need. Now, even though that's all really important from a psychological perspective, what we're worried about the most is fit, because that's what creates safety. When footwear fits properly, when safety footwear fits properly, it's safest. So that's really the most important thing.
Yeah. So I know you said you took over a business jumping over to the trucking profession, but how was that big pivot for you? You've done a couple pivots.
Yeah.
And so how did that go? What were you guys doing over there?
I loved it. Honestly, I never thought I would be in the trucking industry. Never occurred to me. But we had a very nice transition into the trucking industry because our uncle wanted to retire. It's my husband's uncle. He wanted to retire. So he said, would you two like to buy this business from me so I can retire? You buying it for me is my retirement. So we wanted to do it to help him out, but also we thought it was a really fun opportunity just to try something new. And it was a challenge for both of us because neither of us came from this background. So we each took 6 months and 3 months separately away from each other. And spent the time in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania with his uncle and the whole team, just training in the industry. So we spent 6 months training and 3 months individually training to really understand how the business operated and to understand the whole history of it and learn as much as we could. And then we took it over from there.
Yeah. So how did the shoe side, because I'm not in the trucking industry, so from the construction side, it's safety on a job site when things are messy, dirty, and progress. But what is that safety factor on the trucking side?
Oh gosh, it could be anything from unloading. When truck drivers are unloading equipment out of their trucks, you have to watch out for things falling on your feet, to large equipment rolling over onto you. There are lots of things on wheels on a trucking site. So it could be it could be a lot of things. It could be a lot of nails and debris and detritus just all over the place that you're stepping on. So a lot of things.
Gotcha. And then diving into the Juno Jones shoes in general, how do you launch a safety boot company?
Good question. Well, I didn't know, but I figured it out. So we decided to launch on Kickstarter. And Kickstarter, for those who don't know, is an online platform where you can basically introduce to the audience what the project is that you want to create. And then individuals can decide to back your project. And what that means with an actual physical product is that they're pre-ordering it, basically. So we put a video together. Well, we created our samples. We found our factory and we created our samples and had our design. And then once that was ready, we created a video explaining what it was we were doing. And then we really built a community around it before we launched. So that was the Hazard Girls community. And it was a Facebook group. It still is. It is a Facebook group. The podcast came out of that. But while we were waiting to launch, because COVID put us on a little bit of no, I take that back. COVID came a little later. But while we were waiting to launch, we were talking to everyone in our community to find out what it is they were looking for in safety boots and amping everybody up. And everyone was super excited. So when we finally did launch, it was February 11th, the International Day of Girls and Women in Science. And we funded within 29 hours.
That is awesome.
The whole thing funded. Yeah.
Now, did you start with just one shoe? Because I know you have a variety of shoes now. So was the discussion focused in and honing in to get the one product launched, or did you find you needed kind of a collection?
We really wanted to launch a collection, but financially, it was just not feasible. So we chose one style. And the way that we did that was, as I mentioned, talking to the women in the Facebook group about what they were looking for. We also put together all kinds of diagrams and images and sent those around in surveys to different groups. And we had them shared at workplaces and among our own networks, and really honed in on this style that people wanted the most and that was most missing from the marketplace. And that was the original Medi boot that launched.
So it was the mini boot was the first one?
It's called the Medi boot, and it's METI. And the reason we named it the Medi boot is it's named after a building designed by Anna Herringer. She's a famous woman architect, and her building in Bangladesh is called the Medi Handmade School. So the idea was for our line to each item in our line to be named after a building designed by a woman architect. So the first one was the Medi boot.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how do you? I have so many questions. Like, how do you find, because it's not just making shoes, there are different like safety levels and requirements. Yeah. So how did you find the proper partner to fabricate and start that process? I don't know if the Medi boot had any ASTM certifications or anything when it first came out. Like, what was that process?
Everything was fully certified when it came out and when it launched. The process, well, I guess a lot of research on our part, understanding everything ourselves, and also hiring a consultant to work with who was an expert in this area. And then we work with a company that does all of the testing. And then our factory, we work very closely with our factory to make sure each item of the shoe and the shoe's construction would meet those standards. And our factory has the ability to test right on site so that they could tell if it was going to pass as they were making it. So that way, as you're constructing the shoe, you can be sure that it's going to meet impact and compression standards, puncture resistance, whatever that may be.
So how do they test it? Are they putting it on like robots to see if nails go through or
basically,
things?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, just giant machines that do it.
And so I know you mentioned Hazard Girls group already and the podcast side. So where did the podcast arm come out of this with the group and creating the boots?
Well, as I mentioned, we started the Hazard Girls group before we launched the Kickstarter. So it really was at the very beginning. But the reason that we launched the Hazard Girls group, it really came out of a need because at the time, this is 2020, so over 4 years ago now. At the time, there really still wasn't a lot out there in terms of networking and organizations to connect women because a lot of people because I was creating this boot company and people knew about it, a lot of people were coming to me and saying, I work in, heavy metals. I work in welding. I work in science or whatever it may be. And but I'm isolated. I don't have any other women here. Do you have anyone you can connect me with? Do you know other women who are doing this? And that's why I really decided to create the group because I thought, well, this is a perfect way to just connect people and also let them become aware of our brand. But so I always made it very clear from the get-go, Hazard Girls is a group organized by Juno Jones Safety Boots, but really we're here for you. Like we want to be here so that we can connect you and help people get to know each other and realize that you're not alone.
Yeah, and cross industries, because it sounds like it's not just construction or transportation, but you got welders, fabricators, distributors, people on all different sides that sometimes I don't even think about because, in my head, I think of the trades and my contractors that are females and jumping in there. And as an architect, I go on site every now and then, but I'm not there day to day. And just thinking how big that is when you simplify it to Hazard Girls, like that just creates such a good umbrella to grab everybody.
Yeah, I'm so glad you noticed that because that's before I created the group, I did make sure there was nothing else out there first because I'm like, I don't want to infiltrate someone else's already existing organization. I'll just send people there if need be. But I couldn't find anything else on Facebook as in a group. It was construction oriented or architecture oriented or you name it. It was each individual. So yes, you're right. Bringing everything together under the umbrella was really the unique thing about Hazard Girls.
Yeah. And especially when there's only like one person, like I'm always excited when I see like a female electrician on site. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what are you doing? How did you get certified? Like I have so many questions. But I know when I started, I was the only female on site as an architect. And so I enjoy seeing how the females have grown in the industry into the trades and contracting and just showing you can do anything.
It's really changed. It's really improved so much. It's just in the past half decade.
Yeah. So how have those conversations informed where Juno Jones has gone so far? Because now you have a lot of different options.
Yeah. We really follow what people are looking for. We're trying to meet our audience and meet the women in the field where they are and help to fulfill the needs that they're missing on the market. So our first style that we've talked about, the Medi Boot, was aimed at being a stylish safety boot because for me, that's what I was missing. And I think there's a lot of validity to having that, as I mentioned. But now that we're talking to so many more women and we see what else is missing out there in the market, we're hearing from women that a lot of tradeswomen are looking for more options that actually fit their feet, that aren't pink it and shrink it, large male boots that don't fit them properly. And so that's really the direction we've tried to also go in because we want to make sure women are safe. And when your only option out there as a tradeswoman are shoes that are made for men, your feet are going to have much higher likelihood of getting injured or just your body in general. you may have the likelihood of tripping, of your foot slipping out. That can result in a lot of other types of injuries as well. So it's a safety issue. So we've really tried to include that direction in our line. And we have a sneaker as well, which is our Solstice sneaker, which was developed really for a lot of women working in warehousing and office as well, where you don't have to go out in the field that much, but maybe you want something a little lighter for the office, but that you can still know that your feet are protected when you do go out. So things like that. So we've tried to expand in that way.
Yeah. And I know I personally have the sneaker because I've done more recently a lot of interior renovations. So I get out of the exterior dirt a lot quicker. So I don't need my really heavy exterior boots that's going to have to deal with a lot of the muck, grime, and dirt, as well as all the nails. But wanted something, at least some protection as I go through, because you never know when somebody's going to drop a nail or something somewhere that I'm going to hit along the way for a floor that may look pretty well finished.
Yeah.
And I even wore that to the AIA conference, and it was able to go miles with me.
I love it. Yeah, they're so comfortable. I saw the picture of you at the AIA conference. I saw, and someone else brought them to Europe and did her Europe tour in them and was really comfortable. So it's good to know that people are wearing the heck out of them and getting them nice and used, and they're still really comfortable.
Yeah, and Europe would be great with all the cobblestones. You never know when you're going to just I always tend to trip on cracks and stumps on the floor. So it's just having a little bit more comfort is always helpful.
I live in Philadelphia, so I understand cobblestones pretty well.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite shoe?
It's hard. It's really hard for me because they're all my babies. My favorite is the Medi 2, which we now call it the Medi. But when we first launched the Medi boot, it did not have a back pull tab. So our current Medi boot has a back pull tab and also the zipper. There were a few changes made. So when we relaunched the Medi boot with our new production run, we made a few changes that people had asked for in feedback. So now all of our boots have a back pull tabs to help you get them on. The zippers, if they have zippers, they go down low enough so they don't stop before, if you have a high arch, you can still get your foot in easily. So just things like that we made the difference. So the recrafted Medi boot, which is the current Medi boot, the one that a lot of people have, and it's still our bestseller, it's one of our 2 bestsellers. They're very close. Is still my favorite. I love it. It's so comfortable.
So what's the number 2 bestseller?
There's another boot we have that is competing for bestseller. I don't know exactly which one is the bestseller, to be honest, because they're so close, is the Lisa. And that is our sort of 90s combat boot style lace-up, 6-inch lace-up boot.
Gotcha. Was there anything surprising you learned along the way on what people wanted? It was, a boot that you never would have thought you would have gone that direction and ended up creating or something.
Well, one thing that people ask me for is a taller boot. And when they were asking us for a taller boot when we first started, the first one we had launched was the Medi, and the second one is the Serpentine, which is an 8-inch lace-up. It's almost like a logger boot. And people were asking for that. So because that's what our customers were asking for, that's what we created. And then when we went to speak to retailers about wholesale purchases, we heard a lot of feedback oh, no one buys 8-inch boots. They're not, people don't want those. We don't really know if we want those. But lo and behold, they're selling just as much as a lot of the other styles. So there's no rhyme or reason sometimes to how it works. And a lot of times stores may not really know yet what people want until their customers have seen it. And then they know, oh yeah, I do want that. So that was surprising, to get that feedback and then see that they still did sell really well.
Yeah, because you're not, I'm not going to go to DSW and go find a work boot. I'm kind of stuck if I want to try it on to go to sporting goods stores or trying to find a contractor. But even then I can't tend to buy a female boot in person and trying it on. It's mainly online options because people don't have them in stock. So I'm surprised they gave you pushback that people don't want that kind. Maybe not for day to day out and about, but they're missing a whole nother side of what people do all day.
So one thing that you might not think about is that when customers ask retailers to carry a certain brand or a certain style. They really are listening. So we've had retailers come to us and say, our customers are asking for you guys, our customers are asking for your shoes. They want this style, they want that style. And that's how we get in with that retailer. And so I think I just want to emphasize that if you do have a lot of power as a consumer to go to these retailers and to these stores, like say, for example, Boot Barn, if that's where you buy your shoes and you go in there and there aren't a lot of women's options, or maybe only one brand or two brands, why shouldn't you have more options? So take that moment and email them and ask for brands by name, because if you don't ask for brands by name, you may get more of the same, more pink it and shrink it. You have to really specify. So ask for your favorite brands, because it does make a big difference.
So are there particular spots you can go and try on any Juno Jones shoes and buy direct?
Yes, we do have some. Duluth Trading Company will be carrying them come in the coming year, so in many of their locations. So that is an option. We also have our boots in workwear safety stores, which are located. They have mobile trucks, but they're also like 11 locations. Where else? Kosovo is a mobile store that goes to a lot of work sites, and we do, sorry, it's a long pause, but we do pop-ups a lot of times, occasionally. We do pop-ups occasionally in the Philadelphia area.
Yeah, so keep an eye out if you're in Philly. I'll have to even know if I'm on that side of the state, so to keep track. But I think that's important, though, because I never thought of to like ask for brands by name, because, I have the similar issue when I want to go look for golfing footwear or golfing any type of apparel, because golf is such a male-dominated sport that trying to find something that's more female-related, I'm stuck to only a couple options. But I don't think to go to the local store that is only 2 minutes away that my husband can buy everything. And, complain to them, hey, we need these brands here. I've got to go across town to a specialty store just so I have some options. And the same's with a lot of the construction wear. So I think stereotypes and breaking down the stereotypes is helpful.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
And I want to tie everything back to even your original intro, where you started out with helping people in abusive relationships and any traumas. How have you find Juno Jones have kind of tied that all together for you?
Well, I think it comes down to empowerment. Empowering women, I should say, to be able to make choices that are going to put them in a safer position overall. So whether that be making a choice to safely get out of a relationship that is dangerous, to making the choice to stand up for yourself and request footwear and PPE for your body that's actually going to protect you. We hear a lot of, and I can't blame anyone who does not want to speak up at work or on the job about not having the proper PPE, because as women, most jobs don't have it. I know this for a fact because we conducted a study, and the study hasn't been released yet, but the majority of women at work do not have the proper PPE that's fitting them properly. So if they speak up and ask for the properly fitting PPE, some workplaces may be fine with that. And some people may want to work with them and allow them to get things that fit them. But a lot of times you may be met with pushback, or you may be seen as the person causing trouble or stirring things up. And when you're a woman, especially starting out in your career, or even one of the few women on a job site, you're already facing so many uphill battles and underlying discrimination that you may not want to speak up for yourself. So I can't say I blame people for not wanting to do that, but I think overall, making sure that you're advocating for your own safety is really the connecting point between those two things.
Yeah, and going after something that just in general fits, because a lot of trades and contractors, at least I've seen, it's, we will let you expense the proper PPE you need. Like the vest may come directly from the company, but that's fine. But, they're not going to provide shoes. Everybody's feet are different and what their comfort level is. So as long as it meets the requirements, a lot of that can all get expensed anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there are some great safety vests out there that fit properly, that don't get caught on things that I can recommend.
I know I even carry around my own safety vest because I was tired of, the contractor will have the PPE, just have closed-toed shoes. And I would get there and the only safety vests they would have are like extra, extra large that were left. And then I just feel like I'm swimming. And then I'm like, great, I'm already one of the few females on the construction site. And now I feel like a 5-year-old put in like an adult like outfit that like, you just seem more like a child and not a professional at that point. So it's
such a universal feeling for women to feel that way. And we have to put a stop to it. It's not right. We don't deserve that. We deserve so much more.
Exactly. So where do you see Juno Jones shoes going?
Well, our goal is to keep doing what we're doing. We have so many more designs we want to make, and we have so many more styles to fit out there. We want to really expand to hit all different industries. There are a lot of industries we haven't specifically covered yet. So we want to create footwear that meets each industry's specific needs for the women in those industries, and keep going and make Juno Jones more and more of a household name.
What are some of the industries that are missing?
Well, there's a lot to be done in like the medical field, in restaurants, things like that.
Got it. I'm just curious because, again, expanding my horizons on the hazards. Has there been any local organizations that have really impacted the company and launching and connecting with women?
Well, NAWIC, the National Association of Women in Construction, has been always so supportive. I'm involved with the national chapter, but my Philadelphia chapter as well. I was on the board of directors last year. So they've always been amazing, and I still work with them when I can. This year, I've had to shift my focus to another organization to give a lot more of my time to it because I'm one of the founding board members of this organization. It's called AWSAM, AWSAM, the Alliance of Women Safety Apparel Manufacturers. And we just launched. We've been working on the organization for almost a year and a half, but we just launched at the ASSP conference late this summer with a big launch party and announcing the organization. It's made up of about 10 founding member brands who make PPE that is focused on women. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a woman-owned brand, although many of us are. But it's brands that are creating PPE that specifically fits a woman's anthropometric measurements on average.
So what's the goal of that organization?
Advocacy, access. So we want to make sure that we are making sure everyone knows about us, knows about that this is an issue, and making sure that people have access to PPE that properly fits. So when companies are out there and saying to their female employees, I'm sorry, that doesn't exist, or that's not a product that we are able to get, all they have to do is come to AWSAM and we can connect them with manufacturers that are making the very products that they need. We want to, kind of bust that myth that we're not out here and that we don't exist. Because I think that is still a very common myth that the equipment and the proper PPE doesn't exist, and it does. That said, if there's something really niche or really specific that doesn't yet exist, companies can work with our manufacturers and our organization to develop what they need. So there really should be no excuse for not getting women the properly fitting PPE that keeps them safe.
Yeah, because I know I haven't been on the contracting side, but assuming that they have like their catalog of stuff that people can purchase from. So starting to get those brands in there, that they have a selection option for people that then can get branded for that company. Because I know most vests and hard hats are all branded at that point. So you know who's from where.
Yeah. Do you mean like when you say a catalog, do you mean like one of the distributor catalogs, like a Grainger, for example?
Yes, but more on the company side. So if like a contracting company said, hey, we already partnered with Grainger or Duluth, and it's, hey, here are the 5 options that have the proper reflectance that you need based on whatever job you're going on. And then they have their own brand already labeled on it. So then it's, hey, your Rycons, your Whiting Turners, the large companies already have the brand there. So think of it that way.
Well, yeah. Well, so I think a really good thing to keep in mind about that is that when it's similar to what I was saying about the retail stores, if you're working at a company and that company uses a specific company like Grainger to source their products, and Grainger doesn't carry the women brand, the women's focus brand that you're looking for, really what you should do is you can go to the brands directly, and you should connect with AWSAM. But what you should really do is ask the actual company or the actual distributor, such as Grainger, to carry or source the boots, because you can ask them to carry it and they may do that eventually, but you can also ask them to do like an outside sourcing, which means that it does still come through Grainger and they can still get it labeled the way it needs to be for your particular construction company or whatever it may be. And the more requests like that they get, the more likely they are to bring that brand on as a regular offering.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, because I didn't even know you could do that. So
yeah.
This may be a weird one with AWSAM, but do they have lines that go with pregnant women? Because I guess that's the other part of being a female, is you never know when that time's going to be for you. And there's going to be a time that things just don't fit anymore, but you can still work and you want to be safe on a job site. So are there manufacturers within AWSAM that do that?
Yes. There are. I know Dovetail Workwear is a part of AWSAM, and they make maternity pants as well as maybe some other items too. We have a wonderful member, Svetlana. She has the Rugged Peach, and they are in development, working on some really well-fitting maternity, high visibility garments.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, because that's just something I know I have not seen before. Yeah. So now I'm going to have to look them up, as well as AWSAM, because I've not heard of the organization. So I am so glad you guys launched, and I'm sure it's going to really make a huge difference for everybody.
Thank you. And we also have many different levels of membership, whether it be corporate, but we also just accept ally memberships, which are like $10. So anyone can join and just be a part and get our newsletter and be a part of it.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I also put in the show notes the link to AWSAM. So if anybody is looking to join.
Yeah, it's awesome.org.
And I always like wrapping up my podcast with this final question, which may be a little hard with how many pivots and moves you've done with your career. But do you have any advice for young professionals just starting their career?
You're right. I have had a lot of pivots.
If you want to go the lawyer side, or starting your own company, or females in their careers, there's so many different.
Yeah, there are. But I have a sort of overreaching piece of advice, I think. And that is that when you're starting out as a woman, especially, you're going to encounter discrimination on many levels. And I think my piece of advice would be to kind of realize it's happening, and separate that from your own self-confidence and what you're able to achieve. When I was starting out, especially in law, that's when I'm going to go with law, because that's when I was in my 20s and I was really starting out, and I was very young. So I had a lot of confidence, but I would occasionally come up against walls and people that weren't including me, or information that I wasn't somehow able to obtain, or just somebody who left me feeling less than for some reason. And I did not make the connection at that time in my life that I was being discriminated against because of gender. So now, in retrospect, looking back with all this wisdom that I think I've earned, I can see that is what was happening. And so my advice would be to younger people to don't let that affect your self-esteem, and maybe just recognize it for what it is, and get rid of it, put it behind you.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for if you're starting to hit those walls, like how you would have approached it differently to start kind of breaking that down?
Well, I mean, that's a very big topic.
It's loaded in pride. So many different nuances in what's happening.
Yeah, but I think, just going easy on yourself and just knowing that it's not you, it's not your work, and it's not something you've done is the most important first step.
Yeah, and just stepping back, I guess, and not taking blame for something that's not yours to blame, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But it was fantastic to speak with you, Emily. If anybody wants to learn more about Juno shoes and get their own footwear, what's the best spot for them to find Juno besides the stores?
Well, you can get Juno Jones on our website. It's junojones.com. We are also partnered with JJ Keller, who is an exclusive provider of our footwear, meaning they don't sell any other brands. So you can always go to JJ Keller. We're also available with Lehigh Custom Fit, which is available through a lot of workplaces. Yeah.
And I will put all those links down below. So hopefully that helps you guys find the proper shoes for you, as well as links to AWSAM. So hopefully you guys can help increase your membership and help empower women across the hazard trades. So thank you so much, Emily, for taking the time to speak with me today.
Thanks, Caitlin. This has been so much fun.
I hope you enjoyed our discussion today. Learn some advice to take with you and see how our industry is all tied together to create the world around us. Check out the description below for any links or resources we discussed. If you liked the episode, please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up and leave a comment below. It really helps others be able to discover this resource and support finding that career path that best works for them. If you know someone that has inspired your own career that you'd like me to interview, let me know in the comments below, or you can reach out to me via my website or LinkedIn. I'd be happy to share their story or your own. Thank you again, and I cannot wait for the next career story I get to share with you next week.